You see, everybody has a story. Every guy in here has a story. Your story is different than mine, but in some ways it's probably similar to mine. Everybody is who they have become because of moments like that, noble moments, missed moments, hurtful moments, defining moments. You are who you are in part because of those things. But do you understand those things? And maybe the bigger question, do you understand how those things are impacting your life right now? You see, to be a real man, you got to look back. You got to figure that out and decide what's worth keeping and what's worth throwing away. When I left home, I left clueless. I had all kinds of mixed messages going on in my soul. Some of those were good. Some of them were not so good. The good ones were when I was on the campus at the University of Arkansas in the 60s and it was a big anti-war environment. I felt love for my country. You know where I got that? You know where I got it. The same time when I was on the campus, there would be times where I'd be talking to some friends and somebody would say a racist statement or make a racist joke, and it always made me mad. You know where I got that? You know where I got that. At the same time, I was clueless about girls, and I made a lot of mistakes with girls. And I made a lot of mistakes with money. And the car that I had that I'd bought going to college, I screwed up because I didn't know how to keep it. I didn't know how to change the oil. I didn't know how to inflate the tires. All I knew how to do when something went wrong with my car is to lift the hood, call a mechanic over and say, see this iron thing here with wires coming out of it? Something's wrong. But when you're clumsy in life, it makes you mad. And anger was the one emotion I would allow myself to feel after leaving home. See, I didn't want to feel, because to feel was to feel shame. So I just didn't feel at all. And that was a problem that carried with me into my 20s and 30s. But I did allow myself to feel anger. And I was mad a lot. And the one thing that made me the maddest is when I failed at something, because I was a driven personality. Because I had learned that the only way I got feedback in life was to succeed. That's why I think I did well in sports. Because when I did well, somebody would say, you did good. And I was this little soul wanting somebody to tell me that I was doing good in life, because nobody at home told me. And so I would push myself and drive myself and work hard. I didn't know why I was working so hard and I was such an intense personality, but I was, because back there in the roots of my life, it got created. Everybody has a story, and everybody needs to understand their story so they can become the kind of man that they need to be. Now, let me just make some observations about looking back, because this is what's going to start our journey over the next several weeks. I want to give you just kind of 6 basic observations about looking back here as we finish up this morning. Here's the first one. My story is not unique, which I just told you. Now, you just got an up-close and personal glimpse into my life. But as a man, here's what I've learned. I can tell my story because I know now I'm not alone. I used to think I was alone. I used to think everybody like you out there, that you had it good. And I had it not so good. I had it kind of mixed. You know what I find? A lot of guys, they all think everybody had it better than them. But that's just not true. No matter how good you look on the outside, there's a lot of stuff going on every man on the inside. Some of those things are hurtful. Some of those things feel like vacuums and missed moments. Some of those things are noble. But everybody has a story. And discovering that other men are like you is one of the great benefits of a meeting like this called Men's Fraternity. Secondly, I learned when a boy fails to connect with his dad, demons of one kind or another often fill the void. When dad's not there, it leaves a hole in a son's psyche. Whether dad wasn't there emotionally or whether dad wasn't there altogether, leaves a hole. And the son's going to fill it with something. Some are going to fill it with cheap, tragic substitutes. Whether it's workaholism, machoism, sexual addiction, alcoholism, power games, being like me, a driven personality, or other extremes. It's all seeking to compensate for something that should have been there, but wasn't. And what often isn't there in a man's life is a reconciled, healthy relationship with the most significant person in his life growing up, and that's Dad. Third, many men have yet to reckon with their past or close out the unfinished business that still lives there. As I told you, this may be due to denial, looking back. Some guys don't want to look back. They don't want to lift the manhole cover. It might be due to lack of courage or just plain ignorance about the past and how the past affects now. But regardless of the reason, the truth is that some men are still trying to win at 40 or 50 mom or dad's approval. And they don't even know that they're doing it. I met a young guy, well, actually, he wasn't a young guy, he was in his 30s. He was attempting to finish his dissertation in philosophy at the University of Chicago, very prestigious school. I remember sitting with him having coffee, and he said, it won't matter. He was trying to get the energy, the warrior up to finish his dissertation. He said, it won't matter. I said, what do you mean it won't matter? The guy had done phenomenally well in school. He said, I'll finish it and I'll show it to my dad, and he'll say some remark like, why couldn't you do better? His whole life had been to jump a little higher to somehow hear Dad say, you've done good, son. But his dad always had a critical comment, or why couldn't you put the bar a couple of feet higher than where it was? Why couldn't you have made all A's rather than all A's except for one B? Why didn't you get in Harvard instead of the University of Chicago? It was always something else that kept him from feeling that. And his whole life had been defined by winning Dad's approval. There are some like me who are for years unknowingly trying to redeem the family name to get rid of that shame. That was me. I didn't know that, but now looking back, that's why I drove myself. I wanted to have someone tell me, hey, you're doing good. You're good. And I could kind of clear the name, the Lewis name. But if you had asked me at 21 I was doing that, I couldn't, whether I was doing that or not, I would have said, what are you talking about? Because I didn't understand what was driving me. Some men blame their past and just become helpless, irresponsible victims in life. Oh, I had it bad, so now that's going to excuse me to be bad. Some men are still trying to deny or excuse the evil they've done in their past, and that's why they're stuck in their manhood. Some men squander the rich family heritage that they had. And because of that, and because they refuse to admit that, they're never going to right the boat of manhood for their own life. There are all kinds of things that can be unfinished business that needs to be dealt with in order to move on in a healthy way in the kind of manhood that every man should embrace. Fourth, until a man unpacks his past and deals with the themes and the pain that resides there, he can never be an authentic man. You know, at some point, every guy's got to unpack his past. That's why I say the first step to authentic manhood is looking back. I talked to a very successful businessman a few years ago who had made a fortune in a number of business enterprises. Very impressive. In fact, so impressive that it was very obvious the guy would never need to work another day in his life. And so I asked him, because one of the kind of the premier characteristics of his life was the 80-hour week. That he didn't need to work that much. And I said, you know, you seem to still be just pushing it as hard as ever. Why is that? And he kind of reflected for a moment, and just in a brief moment of vulnerability, he kind of cracked open his heart. And he said, when I was growing up in Illinois, we lived in a trailer outside of town. My dad didn't work. My mom had to take care of us. We never had enough of anything. And I remember going to school at this public school, and some of the kids ridiculing me for the old clothes that I wore, the fact I only had one pair of shoes. He said, when I was 16, I decided to start my first business. And I remember stepping out of that trailer and looking back, and I said to myself these words: I'm going to get as far away from this trailer as I can get. Then he went, closed back up for a moment. When I walked away, I thought, here he is, has millions of dollars, could enjoy life or do things with his life other than work. But you know what he's still trying to do? Tell me. He's still trying to get away from the trailer, isn't he? Because he's not unpacked his past. Always living in the past, men, is not manhood. It's boyhood. Playing the victim because of your past is not manhood, it's boyhood. Working all the time to achieve things that you don't even understand is not manhood, it's boyhood. Denying your feelings rather than grieving over your pain, which you may need to do, is not manhood, it's boyhood. Disconnecting from your past rather than connecting with it and understanding it and having the courage to deal with it, it's not manhood, it's boyhood. You need to unpack the past. Fifth, you cannot become a real man without help. There is no such thing as a self-made man. The Scripture says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. The truth of the matter is, no man can become an authentic man without the help of other men. We need their insight. We need their accountability. We need their balance in our life. There were two men in my life who were absolutely essential with getting me through my teenage years and into my more adult years. One was a coach who just picked up on the fact that I was a needy kid, and he noticed me. You know how powerful that is for an older man to notice you, especially a coach. It was just the little things that he did that affirmed me for a few things that I had, but it stabilized me in a very unsteady time living in a home with an alcoholic dad. His name was Coach Garrett. And if you know my son, my oldest son, he's named Garrett because of the incredible impact that coach had in that brief period in my life. Now, there was another man that made a big impact, and I'll tell you about him later in the weeks to come. But I just want you to know this. There is no such thing as a self-made man. There are men who have self-made success, but they may have that success at the expense of a number of other things personally. They may be short-sighted. They may be unhealthy. They may be imbalanced, and they may be riddled with a number of blind spots. But a healthy man has other men in his life to help make him who he needs to be. And then finally, a final principle is this: for better or worse, we are all significantly shaped by the family life we experienced. The past helps explain you and me, but listen, I want to make a very important announcement here at the end after all that I've said about the past, and it's this. Yes, we are products of the past, but no, we are not prisoners of the past. Did you guys hear that? Write it down. Yes, we are products of the past, but no, we are not prisoners of the past unless we choose to be. And we can choose to be by ignoring the past or denying the past, or worse, surrendering to the past. That's why it's important to unpack our past. so we can take a look at what's in there and we can choose to keep the things that have influenced us in a good sense. But at the same time, by unpacking the past and telling our story and explaining ourselves not just to us but to others, we can invite help and assistance to break free of those things from our past that are holding us back from the kind of manhood we need to achieve. It can be done, guys. And it's exciting. It's become an exciting, freeing adventure for me, because I don't go around with shame anymore, and I don't go around, with all this suppressed anger anymore, and I don't go around clueless anymore about life. And it's freeing because it ushers you into a whole new existence called authentic manhood, and it can be done. And a lot of good men have done it. But here's what I want you to know. It requires for every man this first step to authentic manhood. It's the step called looking back. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to look back? That's what we'll be doing in the weeks to come.